everyone, I'm Stacey Ellis. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my channel is designed to help you improve yourself overall, whether that's spiritually, nutritionally, or just in your overall character development. And so I'm here to announce that I'm officially starting on BookTube. That's right. I've already done some book reviews years past, and I've just fell in love with some books recently, and I realized I actually read a lot, and so I was like, why not? Why not just start, talking about some of the things that I've read? In addition to that, I am a Christian, and I know that there's a need for Christian booktubers on our internet. There's not that many of us, and so I want to share some of the knowledge that I have. So it's currently July in 2022, and so I've decided that for this first video, I'm just going to do a review of the books that I've read in 2022 thus far. Now, I will have a little disclaimer. I am in grad school and I work, so I don't read as much as some other booktubers, so I won't have as many videos up probably as some people, but I will have them ever so often. So I read mostly, I'll read Christian books and nutrition books mostly. But I also do, sometimes I'll do some type of self-help type of book as well. I've recently started getting into fiction more, and the types of fiction that I like is clean fiction, and I recently got introduced to Christian fiction, and I'm falling in love with that as well. So if any of that sounds like something that you might be interested in, then make sure you subscribe and tune in to my future videos. So like I said, I'm going to talk to you guys about the books that I've read thus far in 2022, and I'm going to divide it up into self-help books, nutrition books, and Christian books. So I'm going to actually start with my, I'm going to start, what do I want to start with? I'm going to start with the self-help, and then I'll do nutrition and end with Christian, because I think that kind of, I think it kind of goes. So the first one, I listened to it on audiobook, and it is Deep Work by Cal Newport. And the reason why I read this book or listened to this book is because, like I said earlier, I'm in grad school, and I have a lot of work that I have to do. I'm working on my dissertation, I'm writing journal articles, and you really have to focus to get the stuff done. And so I found that it was not making progress, and I was like, okay, I probably need to listen to this guy and see, if he has any pointers for me. And so the deep work is pretty much, there's this idea, there's deep work and there's shallow work. So shallow work is stuff that you can easily do and multitask with. So that would be like checking emails, inputting data, like just typing in numbers, stuff where you don't have to really focus. Where deep work requires you to really think. So that is like, if you're writing, if you are really analyzing and trying to think up new knowledge of things, that would be deep work. And what he talks about is that we need to train ourselves to be more in tune with our deep work, that we should be more intentional with our deep work. And as you work on your deep work, you'll be able to do it longer and longer. So I can do deep work currently anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. It just kind of depends on the day and how strong my brain is that day. And so during that time, like, you avoid all distractions. Like, you don't go on your phone, you don't go on social media, you don't pick up the phone and talk to people, because when you do, it's like starting over. Like, you lose that train of thought. And I know people take breaks. You don't want to take too many breaks. You want to try to work as hard as you can until you really do need to take a break. And he talks a lot about, like, when you take breaks, to do things like go for a walk, to let your mind kind of work through things, and such. So it's a really good book. So that was my first one. I gave that one 4 stars. And the reason why I gave it 4 stars, the content was good, but after a while I felt like it was repetitive. Like as I kept going through it, it sounded like he just kept repeating himself in just different ways. And so, yeah, I didn't really particularly like that part. All right, the next. This one was a fun, quick book. Personality Test. I got this from Five Below. This is by Halloween Nichols. And so it's just 25 personality tests based off a real personality test. So they shortened the test to 10 questions, and they give you, what your personality trait is. This was very helpful because it gave me more insight of who I am. For instance, the most common personality test is determine if you're introvert or extrovert. Well, I'm actually an ambivert, which is a combination of the two. It's someone that used to be an introvert, and then they ended up becoming more extrovert-like. So that's just one of them. They also have what animal are you, and the different animals represent different types of personalities. They have your leadership style. What type of artist are you? Are you optimist or pessimist? A lot of great personality tests. This was just fun. It was just fun, and I used it to analyze my husband and also just myself and my family members. It just puts perspective on why people behave the way they do, why different things irk them, or all of that. It's not necessarily character flaws, it's just their personality. So that one I gave 4 stars as well. It was really fun. I don't know why I gave it 4. It has to be really, 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 really good to be 5 stars, I guess. So that was that one. And if you're wondering, I'm on Goodreads, seeing everything I read so I can put it in order for you guys. The next self-help book that I read was 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And so I did it on audiobook, and you can't really see it because it's so dark. It's a white book, which is probably why you can't see on here. But it's by Jordan Peterson. I got introduced to him this year. It's my first time listening to him, and he makes a lot of sense with a lot of things. He says what he means, and he means what he says. And so I decided to listen to his book, 12 Rules for Life. To be honest, I only gave it 3 stars. I think that in part is because it was so long, and a lot of times drawn out. Just give me the rules and make it very simple for me. That's the way I am. I felt like there was a lot of extra that was added. But the rules themselves are pretty good, and I would say a lot of it's actually based off of wisdom from the Bible. Literally, it's pretty common sense, I would say, but you wouldn't know it's common sense unless somebody said it to you, type thing. So yeah, it was actually pretty good. It got 3 stars, not because of I agreed with the 12 rules. I just thought that the book was very long, and I kept thinking, come on now, let's get to it. If you listen to his YouTubes, or he pretty much talks about a lot of these rules already, so you don't necessarily, I don't want to tell you not to read the book. There's definitely references to the book that he talks about in his YouTubes and stuff, but it goes into more detail obviously in the book. So like I said, I just did it on audiobook, and yeah. So okay, so those were the, I guess, self-help. I don't know what category that would be. Improve yourself. So I guess that is self-help. Now we'll talk about the nutrition books that I've read this year so far. And there's only 3. So the first one is a short read. And the reason why these are short reads is because, like, I love nutrition, but I don't always feel like reading about nutrition, depending on how much nutrition I'm already reading and doing already. So, yeah. But anyway, so this one is Migraines in Women, Real Relief and Natural Remedies by Karen Dustman. So I suffer from migraines, and so that's why I picked up this book. I, as many women, get migraines quite regularly, and so I was just interested to see, what extra things she had to say. It was actually quite cool because, she discussed why women get migraines, what the different triggers are, why, what different types of treatments. So I was actually skeptical of this because it said real relief with natural remedies. So I was thinking that everything in here was going to be like, oh, eat this herb and, do this thing. But it actually is pretty well rounded. Like, she talks about medication, she talks about diet, she talks about, all the different types of causes. So I actually thought this was a really good book. And so I did give it 3 stars. I thought it was pretty good, but it was still a short read, and it didn't answer all my questions. But, she did a good job for what it was. So if you are a migraine sufferer, it's a quick, I read it in one day. All right. My next nutrition book I read is Dietary Fiber, Its Surprising Range of Therapeutic Protective Health Benefits by Shirley Lorenzani. So this was really good because it talked about fiber, but it gave you a little bit more information. So it talked about like the effects on your health. It also gave you, so there's soluble and insoluble fiber. You need both. But what tends to happen is people tend to gravitate more to one. So you might eat more insoluble, you might eat more soluble. And so it gives you a well-roundedness of, how much insoluble and soluble fiber are in different foods, and how much you should be eating. And there's also some recipes in here. So this was a quick, fun, short read. I gave it 3 stars, and it's not because it's not a good book, but it's mainly because I already knew a lot of stuff in here. It wasn't really, for me, it wasn't a lot of new information, but I'm a dietitian and I study these things. If you are someone that's not a dietitian and you want to just learn more about fiber, this would be a quick read that you can pick up to learn about fiber. My last nutrition book was a reread. It's an old book. You might be familiar with these books, the Eat This, Not Now, Not That, by David Zinczenko. I don't know how to say his name. Zinczenko. He's the chief editor-in-chief in Men's Health. I don't know if he still is. But he had quite a few of these books that were out. I have 3 of them. This is one. And I just felt like reading something that was light and fun, that had a lot of pictures, because sometimes you want to look at pictures instead of like reading long pages. And so that's why I got that or read it. So I will say, so this is an old version. I have it because there's a lot of like nutrition tips and just tidbits like on the side. They'll say stuff, and as a nutrition nerd, I just enjoy reading those things. But like the actual meals and stuff, those things, a lot of them are outdated. Like, they've changed their menu a lot since this book has come out. This one was written in 2008. So there is that, and then there's just like extra nutrition information. Like, there's different chapters with just extra stuff. So it's just fun to read. This one I gave 3 stars as well. Again, because a lot of stuff I already know, and it is outdated. but this is something that I have on my own bookshelf. So those were the 3 nutrition books that I read this month. Now we get into the fun Christian books. So I've read 4 Christian books this season. I have started some other ones and I stopped them because I didn't agree theologically with them. But I'm not going to go into those because I don't even remember the name of them. But we'll start with my favorite, Lineage of Grace by Francine Rivers. So this was my first Christian fiction novel that I've ever read. I've never read Christian fiction before this. In part because I thought of it as like, you know, you watch some of the Christian movies and they like change the story just for the sake of entertainment. And I was afraid like if I read a Christian fiction book that would be the case, and that they wouldn't stick to the biblical story. But this pretty much stuck to the biblical story. So this is based off of 5 women in the Bible who are in the lineage of Christ. We have Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary. And so it's their stories in the Bible written into 5 novellas, so short little reads within this whole novel. And so Francine Rivers pretty much takes the Bible stories and just goes into more detail. Like she just puts it in a narrative form. You know, what were the women thinking? What would have been some of the things that they might have seen and experienced? So it was actually pretty true to the actual biblical story, but it just adds an extra element that makes you start to wonder why, you know, how would they actually feel in this scenario? You know, we're talking about Bathsheba. What did Bathsheba, how would she have actually felt, you know, being in her situation with David? You know, Mary, what would it feel like to actually raise Jesus? You know, to know that he was a Christ, like, and having to raise him and other people not know he's a Christ, like, what could you be feeling, you know, during that? So it was just really fun reading this. 5 stars. So I actually, so I started reading it in 2021, but I finished the last, I think, 2 novellas in 2022. So the story of Bathsheba and the story of Mary, I finished this year. So definitely good. Like I said, this introduced me to Christian fiction, and now I am hooked. I actually went to the store and bought more books from Francine Rivers, and I'm reading one now. So definitely 5 stars. It's my first 5 stars, I think, today. It's very, very good. Okay, so that was that. The next Christian book that I read was a nonfiction book, Respectable Sins by Jerry Bridges. This one was a really good book too. I had it on my shelf for years, and it's like, oh, I already know what it's going to be about. That's what I was thinking to myself. I already know what it's going to be about. I'm not going to read it. But then I was like, you know what? Go ahead and read it. And I actually, I ended up underlining a lot in here. So it pretty much what this book is, it talks about sins that we consider to be justified, like, oh, that's normal for people to do that. Like, you know, it's not really a sin. Like, people would say, oh, no, it's not really a sin. But really it is. And so it goes over it. Some of the ones that definitely that hit home with me was the anxiety, frustration. Also, thankfulness. Yeah. This is a really good book. I will say, So some of the stuff I already knew, and it was just like a reminder for me not to do these things. And being that for me, since it was a reminder, it wasn't fully like a whole new revelation for me. So I only gave it 3 stars for me, because it wasn't like a wow, like, oh yeah, like I really, really need to focus on this. But it was still pretty good. Like, I definitely recommend you read this, especially if you're trying to grow in your Christian walk and you're trying to just, sanctify yourself, and maybe you don't, have issues with the 10 Commandments, but you're like, I know I probably am still not where I need to be. This is a good read to continue to sanctify yourself and get yourself closer to God. All right, then I have some short reads that I finished. So this is Christian Behavior by John Bunyan. So this was written in 1648. So it's a really old document, but it is so good. Like, when I started reading this, so the first time I started reading it, I was like, oh, this is so boring. Like, I think you really have to have your spirit ready, ready and willing to listen and to, be receptive to the word. Because once I opened it this time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like, I couldn't put it down. Like, I thought it was so good. I underlined so much in here. So it pretty much talks about how Christians should behave, and it does talk about this topic, but it gives you kind of like how respectable sins brings up things that you might not think about. This does it as well, but I would say so respectable sins for me was not like a aha, like, oh, I know I should do this. This one was like, oh, I never thought of that. You're right. Like, that's a lot of the takeaways I got from this. Like, it was just a lot of wisdom. So it's another short read. I like to do short reads because it makes me feel like I accomplished something, being that I am in school and I only have a few times to read. So there's that. And then the last book is another short read. This is a nonfiction again, and this is Guarding Your Heart by A.W. Pink. So he was a theologian in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and this was also really good. So I gave this one 5 stars. So Guarding Your Heart. I try to guard my heart constantly, and this was just a good reminder of things that, you want to guard your heart because out of it flows the wellsprings of life, right? Like, you want to guard your heart because out of your heart the mouth speaks, right? And so he just talks about different things that you wouldn't necessarily think would corrupt your heart and affect your heart, but it does. And like, it's quite convicting. Like, you definitely want to watch what you look at, what you listen to, who you talk to, even things that you read. Like, all those things can enter your heart and affect you. Like, your environment really does affect you. What you spend your time doing, you should be daily seeking him. You should be meditating on his word. You should be focused on him, and you should be communing with God and desiring him. And if focusing on God is just a to-do list, like, okay, I'm going to church, check, I'm reading the Bible, check, then your heart is not where it needs to be, and you need to work on your heart. So this is really good. It's another short read, but it's really good. Again, I gave this one 5 stars. So those are all the books that I read in the first half of 2022. I know for some of you guys, you might read that amount in 1 month, but again, I I'm very busy, and I generally only get a chance to read early morning for a few minutes and in the evening. So I don't really get through a whole lot real fast. And the audiobooks, I have to be in the mood for it. And I think it's in part because I use my brain so much for school already. To listen to an audiobook, it makes me feel like I'm working. So, like, even with like fiction books, because I was listening to some fiction books, I was like, I can't listen to this. I just need it quiet for my brain to detox. But it's fine. I'm not in a competition with anyone. I try to read for myself and, grow. Now, I will say this is not all I've read. I am reading stuff that I'm not done with. So, like, I open books and I start reading them, but they're not finished. So that's probably another reason why I'm not done, because I'll read, like, some people, they'll read straight through, and I try to do that. Like, obviously with stuff like this, I can do that easily. But some of the other stuff, like, I have a book, I've been reading Josephus, and I've been reading that for a few years now, but I just do a little at a time because it's just a lot in there. But yeah, so I know this was a little long. I'll try to do more updated ones, monthly or every few months, so that way it's not as long. If you're on Goodreads, go ahead and find me on there. I would love to follow some more people to see what they're reading. It's quite interesting. So, yeah. All right, you guys, have a great day. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys. And I'll put down below the titles of all these books and stuff in case you are interested in getting them for yourself. So, okay, you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.